Hello, and welcome to the Social Power Lab podcast, brought to you by Vokes Leadership Group.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 17 of the Social Power Lab. I'm everybody's favorite 3.7% German French boy. Well, actually, you know what? The 3.7 is just German. But regardless, I'm Adrian Deschamps, and I am here with Jedi Master Dr. Ted Vokes, and we are Vokes Leadership Group, and this is the newest edition, or newest edition of the episode of Social Power Lab. I'm already just like extroverting all over the place, which is kind of relevant since we're talking about personality dynamics. And as many people who know me, I kind of have that like thing where I don't stop talking. So before I keep doing that, how is Ted doing today?
Ted is very, very tired, but in a happy kind of way. So instead of deferring this, we want to keep putting out the content, and so anything could happen today. I have no idea. My filter is probably somewhat reduced.
There's going to be a
So,
musical number halfway through.
oh well, sure.
That's what I'm
Interpretive
expecting.
dance or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
you'd make
I,
a good tap dancer. I feel like that'd be like a hidden talent you have.
Yeah, if I had any coordination whatsoever, to move one foot in some kind of sync to the other, I suppose, but probably not my forte. Yeah. So, and Amir sends his regards. He's come up with some really exciting material on the management of the high conflict slash dark tetrad individuals in your lives. So we'll be bringing that to you, his new innovations in the management of these people if you have to have one or more in your life. It's Biff on steroids. So if you listen to those episodes on how to do communications through the BIF framework from the High Conflict Institute, Bill Eddy's group, then this is BIF plus six, I think, six items. It's really neat stuff. So I've just been reviewing it. We'll bring that in some episode, but we do have an agenda for today because we're carrying on from last time, where we were looking at personality inclinations towards power, right? Different types tend to, and different personality dimensions tend to relate to the 12 forms of power differently,
Hmm.
um, in sort of a pattern kind of way. But I think we made the point last time, Adrian, and we want to reiterate the fact that it's not as though, oh, introverts only use certain forms of power and extroverts use other forms of power. It is not like that at all,
Right.
because we all, regardless of our personality profile, use all 12 forms. It's more a matter of which forms are most egosyntonic and which might be a little bit less egosyntonic, right, to somebody. So it doesn't mean we don't use them because we indeed do.
Yeah, and I feel like on that note, I want to give like a crash course on personality theory. Let's see if I can do this in under a minute. It's
Go.
going to be exciting. Okay, so every person in the world has a four-letter personality that constructs one of the 16 personality types. So I, for example, am ENFP. So that means I'm an extrovert, I'm annoyingly social, talk a lot, get energy from the external environment. The N is I'm intuitive, big picture thinking, abstract thinking, outside the box type of stuff, and I miss details all the time. F is I'm mainly driven by my values, and my feelings kind of override my logic first, but I can still be logical if I need to, obviously. And then P is perceiving, which is basically you adapt to the environment, you go with the flow, you take things as it comes to you, you perceive before you choose your course of action. Now, Ted here, his personality is INFJ, so we're two letters off from each other. So Ted is introverted, gains energy from internal type stuff, ideas, thoughts, hence being a theoretician and a frickin' psychologist. And socializing actually can drain him. However, he's very good at socializing when he needs to. Intuitive, just like me, abstract thinking, outside the box thinking, big picture, kind of sees the forest instead of the trees. And we both miss details like a mother effer. We're both Fs as well, so both very value driven. Kind of wear our hearts on our sleeves, just really use our feelings to kind of navigate the world. And logic is also there present, but it kind of comes secondary, right? So you know and then there's the J, which is one of the biggest differences, where J's are very structured, like to pre-plan things, like to kind of have an idea of what they're going into, and kind of likes to structure the external world so that it goes to their preferences, right? So if you see people that like to color code things or like to organize things, have lots of calendars, have lots of systems that they put in place for things, right? I washed Ted's dishes one time and I'm just like, this guy is not going to know that I was in his kitchen because I'm putting everything back exactly where it went. Sure as hell, this guy comes home from the trip and he says I peed all over his kitchen because my pee personality trait just apparently didn't put everything back in place. But I swear, people, I swear on French toast that I put everything back in place exactly where it was. So I don't know. We can hash that out another time. I'm still convinced I put it back in place. But anyways, so that is kind of a nutshell on personality. We're gonna have these
Wow.
letters, and different combinations of them. For example, my partner is an ENFJ, so her and I are one letter off. One of my best friend is INFP, so we're also one letter off. My parents are ESTP, so we're lots of letters off. So it just depends, kind of where you fit with which trait. Now, the thing here with power that we're really kind of connecting is that depending on the traits, certain forms of power can be more egocentric for you, meaning they're more comfortable to use. It feels more right? Even me just saying that right there is an intuitive and feeler thing to say. Whereas, something that a thinker would say with a T or maybe even an S in their type, which is, S's are sensors, which are more practical, more routine based, like an order to things, more literal, right? More detail oriented. An S or T trait would say, well, it makes more sense. It kind of fits more logically, right? Whereas me being an NF would say like, oh, it feels right. I like it. It's, you know, shiny and comfortable and squishy, and it's mine. So yeah, so the power forms essentially, this is what we're theorizing about, is that which ones go more syntonically with which trait. So
Yes.
with that in mind, that's where we're going, and I believe that in our last episode we talked too much, which is, I guess, why you're listening anyways. So I guess there's no problem with that. But we only made it through the first two dimensions of the traits when we plan to make it through all four. So we're gonna go through the second half today. But the ones we talked about last time, just for a little recap, is we talked about introversion and extroversion, which is the first letter, and then we talked about sensing and intuition, which is the second letter. So the first dimension, the first letter, is about how we gain energy and how we interact with the outside world, right? Extroverts gain energy socially and through external things. Introverts gain energy internally. And then the second dimension is, how do we perceive the world? How do we make sense of it? How do we understand it, right? Intuitives understand it in a very abstract ways, outside the box, concepts, underlying themes, and then sensors understand it in very practical, literal, hands-on type ways by form of the five senses. So that's where we left off. So you're either an I or an E or an N or an S. So whichever one you think you are, write those letters down, get them tattooed on your forehead, whatever you got to do, because we're going through the next ones. So, did I do okay? Did that hit the point?
Well, I think it might be over a minute, but I've got to
Yeah,
say that you might have done that in one breath. I That was
it did
amazing.
feel like one
Like
breath. My
it was like it wasn't a rant. It was but it was a display of knowledge that I just sat back and reveled in. Like
You know,
it
my
was really
vocal coach, Samantha, who is a wonderful vocal coach, by the way, she was kind of dumbfounded by how little I would breathe when I was singing. And she's like, "You're struggling at this point because you've sang 3 lines without breathing." I know.
mm-hmm.
Oh, so I should probably work on breathing.
Well,
But
I'm a big fan of breathing.
yeah, it's
I've been doing it all my life. It's a discipline that I developed. I went to a retreat once to, no, I'm full of it.
yeah.
That was
He's a
fun. That was
breathologist.
brilliant. A breathologist. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so,
So where are we picking up? I guess we're going
so
into the
yeah.
third
Oh,
letter. With,
here's one just before we get going. Because this is going way back in time. So it doesn't have to do with power, but it's cute. You just called me a breathologist, brought something to mind, and I'm so tired. Loose associations. So when my son was a little guy, and of course I have a bit of a military background in the reserves, and I was teaching him the phonetic alphabet, and he really took to it, so he could do Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and he could go through them all. And every now and then and he's probably like 4.5 or 5 at this point, and he already knew the phonetic alphabet. But sometimes he'd struggle with some of them, and we would do it for fun. I wasn't quizzing him. I would quiz him, but he liked to be quizzed. So this wasn't a and he was, going through the middle section, um, and he was, OPQ. So uh, Oscar, Papa, Quebec would be the correct, terms for those 3 letters, and he got to uh, Oscar, and then he was like P, and he couldn't remember, Papa, and so I'd give him some subtle hints, and so I said, after he struggled enough, I said, okay, what am I? What am I? And he looked at me sort of askew, and it was just, you could see his little mind just, oh, there's a Q here. What is my dad? What am I? I said, and he said, a peologist?
oh, a
A
peologist.
peologist, which meant he knew how it was spelled somehow, right?
That's
Which is
actually really
amazing.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, he might have been 6, but
You know what?
it's
That's
brilliant.
I think we gotta change your job title now.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a peologist. Yeah, yeah.
That
So
is hilarious.
that was, yeah. So no,
What a
no
guy.
Papa. Of course, he didn't call me Papa. That wasn't a thing, but I was doing my best to cue him for.
That's like
Um,
a good peologist would.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. I was using peology at that point, and so there you go. Completely unrelated, but I warned everybody at the outset. I am so tired.
Oh, that was, you know what? That's an
Definitely
important story.
sleep deficit. There you go. So yeah, we're gonna do the next 2 dimensions. I'm gonna also slide in one thing. Type theory is not not fully embraced by mainstream psychology, and people will confuse it with this horrible thing out there that gets much maligned called the Myers-Briggs. It's not Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs is a psychometric tool that is based on type theory, but type theory is not the Myers-Briggs. Type theory is Jungian based. Carl Jung developed the first 3 of the 4 dimensions of type theory. And as it happens, they very closely correspond to the first 4 of the big 5. And the big 5 is what is um, embraced by mainstream psychology, and we embrace that. And they are 2 different ways, both not perfect. We have issues with maybe not the big five, but the way that the big five is conceptualized in a way. For instance, you're only extroverted, but it's how extroverted are you on the big five versus in type theory, you're introverted or extroverted. Um, so the two models of personality have a great deal of correspondence. Some people will deny that because I'm only a big fiver, and this type theory stuff is crap. And the point is that the big five can't do certain things that type theory can, and type theory definitely can't do certain things that the big five can. So here's how that works. Um, we do a lot of personnel selection work, and we use various psychometric tools that have been developed by major corporations. Our preference tends to be SHL, but we've used Hogan on occasion, and both of those have the big five personality indicators in them, and they're not type theory, and they can be used legitimately for personnel selection work. Um, what they don't do, they give you a reading on the various big five dimensions. Um, what they don't do is give you a profile. Now, type theory, these letters that Adrian's been talking about in one breath, are this comes from not mainstream sort of derivatives, and has been sort of maligned by the Myers-Briggs, which we don't use. We're qualified to purchase the Myers-Briggs. We don't use it. We teach people type theory, and they figure out what their type is, just like you could do by listening to these episodes, and maybe following up and doing a little bit of a dive into some good websites. But what they do is put together these four dimensions as a profile. So you can read about ENFP, which is Adrian's type, or you can read about INFJ, which is my type, and it'll talk about what does this particular combination kind of show up looking like in life, in work, in parenting, in romantic relationships. And it's not everything to do with the psyche, because we know the personality is one of many dynamics that shape human behavior. It's an important one, but it's not the only one. So these profiles are really useful in group dynamics training. That's where it gets traction. But you cannot use that. You cannot say, oh, Ted is INFJ, so he would be good at X, or he wouldn't be good at Y, because it is not a valid predictor of performance. But it's a very useful thing to go, oh, you have a J preference and I have a P preference. Well, actually, it's the inverse for Adrian and I. Um, but all this time, I thought you were, I was frustrating you, or I was frustrating you, and I thought you were just being obstinate, but I wasn't giving you information the way you wanted. Um, right. And that's actually the wrong dimension because I'm really tired. So let's say it was the S and N really use information or relate to information differently. And we've seen a lot of places, situations in the workplace where two people that work together may have some friction or tension, and it turns out that no, it's just a sensing an intuitive difference that leads to frustration, that leads to attributions of, why can't you give me all the detail that I want? And then the intuitive going, ah, I don't know what to do with that much detail. I can't even retain that. I'd have to write it all down for you. But I get the big picture. I get the concept. So we have seen it often in the training we do where people go, all these years I thought you were trying to piss me off, but you just need information differently than I do. Or you need to think out loud because you're an extrovert and I need reflection time. I need time away, or at least let me gather my thoughts. Um, so that's where type theory is really valuable. And the big five is really the research base on personality. It is the gold standard for sure. Um, and I think there's some jealousies and frustrations because Carl Jung got these dimensions of personality back in the 20s, 1920s. And and then it just emerges that those three relate to the big five today. And that the JP dimension, Jung didn't develop himself. It came thereafter. Other theorists came up and put that together. So there's my diatribe on
Mhm.
where personality comes from. and the relative merits. There are problems with type theory, but there are problems with the Big Five. The Big Five is continually being developed and whatnot, and um, so um, and you know what? A big part of the this rivalry between those factions that swear by one or the other and reject the other, it's about power. It really is.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, 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 what a surprise. It's about power. Um, no, we developed these. This is the truth of psychology. No, this was the truth through Jung's eyes. And so, and we're really not wanting to play that power game. We know which version of personality you use in which setting. We would never use type theory in personnel selection work. It is not a valid predictor. It would be unethical, and you could be sued, rightfully so, if you said, oh, well, we're looking for an ENFP, and Adrian is an EFP, so he'd be good for the job. Nope, does not predict that at all. It does tell somebody, oh, I have sort of an idea of what Adrian is going to be like. I haven't met him before, but I know his type. And, so you're your type and you're more than that, Adrian.
Mm-hmm. I try.
Um, so are we all. So there's my fatigued um, uh, matchup to your type theory. It's not rant. It wasn't a rant. I don't have a word for what it was, but it was great. So thank you for doing that.
Honestly, we're just doing our job. It's pretty great. It's a good
There you
time.
go. There you go. Yeah.
It's like bread and butter with pasta, which I would love right now. But anyways,
All right.
so yeah, so we're moving on to these third dimensions. So thinking versus feeling. And as I mentioned, Ted and I are both F feeling types. Now, we do have an idea of, the forms of power that would be syntonic for each of these. I don't know if we want to dive right in, or do you want to give a little rundown, or should I just.
Yeah, you better. Why don't you just give that recap on the T and the F? And this is the worst named of the dimensions because
Mhm.
it really doesn't have anything to do with thinking and feeling. So why don't you clear up that? It's the way that it's expressed. I worked with a Russian psychiatrist and psychologist. They use the same theory, but they use actual symbols like squares, circles, triangles, things like that. I never really quite figured out which corresponded to which, but it's the same theory,
Mhm.
but they don't have the same letter associated or letters, and I don't speak German at all. Why don't you draw on your 3.7% German there, Adrian? And but apparently the Carl Jung spoke and wrote in German, and so the German version of thinking and feeling actually captures what this is about better than the English. There really isn't great words for corresponding to what he meant. So
Interesting.
that's why we're stuck with this thinking feeling thing, and it's not about thinking and feeling. So take her away.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, yeah, thinking versus feeling. So essentially, thinking is based more on logical principles. Essentially, like what makes more sense, what's more fair, what's more, you know, just, what is the best course of action, what is the convergent best solution to this problem, right? It's a very much like a impersonal kind of analysis of things, right? Whereas an F is very value based, very, you know, very much in their own emotional evaluation of things. And, you know, they'll choose values over principles, whereas T's will choose principles over values. So, if you're at like a birthday party, for example, and you're giving, every kid a piece of cake, and I don't know, one of the kids is extra sad, so he wants a, more cake. The T parent might be inclined to say, well, no, everyone gets the same amount of cake, right? And the F parent might be inclined to say, oh, you know what? Like, this is just, he's upset. This is kind of a special circumstance. I mean, I don't know. If I was this kid's parent, maybe I just want him to give the extra cake and make them feel better, right? Like it's based on more of your like moral values as an F, whereas as a T, it's based on more like logical principles, right? Of
And
what makes
fairness.
more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, fairness is a big driver for
Fairness is
those
a
who have
huge
T.
part. Fairness, efficiency is another big part of it.
Hmm.
And that's where a lot of
Magic.
conflicts come through. Oh, that reminds me, Captain America and Iron Man, right? So
There you go. Last time.
Captain America is an F, right?
Yeah.
And Iron Man is a T. So Iron Man is always trying to solve problems by what makes sense logically, and he has these principles of what safety means and what fairness means and what justice means and all this kind of stuff. Whereas Captain America is just like, I hear you, but it doesn't feel right. Nope, like my gut's telling me no, so I'm gonna go and like rebel against the whole country, kind of thing, right?
Right.
So, if Captain America: Civil War, that entire movie is about an ENTP versus an ISFJ. That is that whole movie. Same with Pitch Perfect. That is about a ESTJ running the choir group, and an INFP joins the choir group and stirs everything up, and it's yeah. So it's kind of funny. Like you can find certain movies that really really illustrate personality conflict. But anyway,
Yeah, that's brilliant. And where was I going to go with that? Yes. I just want to finish off the if you have an F preference, and these are preferences, right? It's like being left-handed or right-handed. I can do things with my left hand, but I'm right-handed, so it takes me less energy on that side. That goes back to what Adrian was talking about, shoes off self last time. No role pressure on you. Which would you tend to be inclined towards? And of course, we're applied scientists here, and science is T. Science doesn't care what your values are when you're doing scientific inquiry and investigations. You got to go with what what the data speaks to, right? And so when we are practicing applied science, we follow the data. That's what we do. We don't, oh, I wish it wasn't like this. We're allowed to have that feeling, but we're not allowed to act on that. We wouldn't allow ourselves to do that. So to your point, Adrian, where yeah, we lead with our values, we weigh our values when making decisions. Um, Family first at all times for one person who has an F preference versus, oh no, I love my family, but career has to come first. And those would be two different values, and two Fs could come to very different conclusions about what they should do under the same set of circumstances because they're weighing their values against one another. And harmony is huge for Fs.
hmm
So, right. Um, really want to maintain harmony, or where it breaks down, reestablish it and work towards it. And even if they're not involved, they're in harmony with two people, but those two people aren't in harmony, they may feel compelled to be the peacemaker, right? Because disharmony is really uncomfortable for Fs. And this affects how we approach our what's egocentric with respect to power and what isn't, and T's as well. So there's the T and the F. Having said all that,
hmm
where do you want to go in terms of power now? What's on top of your mind?
Honestly, where we might have to go is speaking of cornflakes, we will be back after the commercial break. So we will see you quite soon, and we'll dive in fully.
Could it be Frosted Flakes? Just this time. Just Frosted Flakes this
They're
time.
they're great. They're
They're
great.
great. They are. Okay. I'll be quiet now.
This week's spotlight from Volk's Leadership Group is on our learning labs. They are highly interactive, science based training sessions that help your people actually apply what they're learning. From power styles in leadership, to managing high conflict personalities, to culture management techniques, we design labs around real dynamics in your workplace and not just some generic case study. Thank you, and now back to today's episode.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed Trenton's voice. I always do. It's been like a
Yeah.
funny thing. Like ever since we've ever he's ever come on a microphone, I've always just been like, kid, you got a voice for radio, and now he embraces it.
It does. It does. Yeah. Yeah.
And Yeah, so yeah, we just broke down T and F just to really, you know, give an idea of that. And um, I guess I guess we should start with F because that's just I don't know. I find it easier.
Well,
Um,
because we're
as I
both
am.
F, but yeah.
Yeah. So the form of power that Fs are generally more, syntonic with, and this doesn't mean all the time, it just means generally,
Mhm.
is referent power. Referent power being, admiration, respect, liking, loving, empathizing, sympathizing, right? And this form of power is extremely useful for an F because it really lets them demonstrate their values to other people, right? So, one like referent power is something that I've used constantly in every environment I walk into before I even knew what it was. All I know is that when I talk to people, I like to make them feel important and I like to make them feel comfortable and I like to be liked as well, right? So these exchanges are, they're actually they're power exchanges, right? But like when you don't have the roadmap of social power, you don't exactly know that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that can come from referent power and being an F that can really show how powerful, not to be punny, but how powerful this form of power is. You know, just examples off the top of my head, I've been in countless situations, countless, where I have broken up an argument or broken up a fight or calmed people down in a conflict. And it's simply just the one of the values driving it is like, okay, things are getting out of hand. Both these people are going limbic, meaning their emotional system's kind of taken over. Let's level with them and figure out what's causing this conflict. And conflict is usually caused by value differences or opinion differences
It's
or
power.
yeah, power, right?
It's
Like just
it's
power
it's
exchanges.
always about some kind of power,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Yeah.
And yeah, using referent power is like being able to sit there and just like make the person comfortable and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's right? Like, making yourself that likable figure for the person to communicate with, and also making a point that, like, you don't dislike them per se, or that you're willing to talk to them, right? I explain my niece who has complete referent power over me. Like, I would literally, like, try to stop a train from like ever harming this child. Like I
Oh
would go
yeah.
straight up Spider-Man on the train. And like it's just so funny because like she's actually so powerful, right? By the way, I have video evidence now that I am the favorite person. So
Oh, oh,
yeah,
that you're in
so
an exalted position
I know
of
Christina took
power.
a video. Yeah, Christina took a video and said, "Who's your favorite person?" And she said, Uncle Adrian." So
Hmm.
I've earned my place back in her heart, everyone.
Yeah, I know there was two
Just
weeks
so we
ago,
know,
there was a bit of a
there was a
kerfuffle.
there
There
was
was a there
fuffle
was
as
there was a
the
kerfuffle.
language and the emotions develop in this 2-year-old. She is learning how to say that she's mad at people, and I was the one she was mad at.
Mhm.
Crazy. So I just love telling that story. I actually talk about that so much. Like, people are gonna think I have this like unhealthy conflict resolution style with a two
With
year
the
old.
with the 2-year-old.
But it's I'm making a joke out of it because it's adorable,
Yeah.
and but yeah, with referent power, there's just a lot that can come with it, right? So many celebrities have referent power over audiences because the audience is just simply like the celebrity, or they're attracted to the celebrity, or they're entertained by the celebrity, right? I'm one of those people where, despite having referent power as one of my most syntonic forms, I don't get starstruck. I don't understand it. I'm like, okay, like I like this person's music or I like this person's movies, but I'm not going to freak out when I see them and beg for their autograph or beg for a picture or something like that because they're just a person, right? But other people, they'll be so overwhelmed by the referent power that this person has over them Also, a indirect reputation oriented power as well is in there. That they'll just be their behavior will completely change, right? If you see Michael Bublé walking down the street, like, that guy is gonna have some weird referent power exchanges, right?
With strangers, probably,
With
right?
strangers, right? And
Yeah.
that's why you see sometimes if you watch TMZ, you see some really crappy power exchanges, right? Like you'll see, people just want pictures of the person and because they like them so much, and then the celebrity will get just so pissed off and be like, "Get out of my face!" Like you're being ridiculous. And I will say, the more I've seen, TMC goes pretty overboard with like the invasiveness, like cornering them in elevators and stuff, and just like crazy
Well,
stuff.
it happens to you all the time. So
It does
really,
happen all the time.
I mean,
Walking my
you
car,
are
right? Just people standing in front of my car taking pictures. They're like, "Is that Adrian, the 3.7% German person who
your
blacked
podcasts.
the podcast?"
Yeah, yeah. No, I know. It's hard to watch because you've lost all of your privacy in life with the paparazzi and everything
Yeah,
else.
ever since I collected all 151 Pokemon at the age of 6, people have just been following me everywhere and wanting to know how I did it.
Yeah, no, you are a world scale hero for sure.
Yeah, it's not all heroes wear capes; they wear muscle plates.
Right.
Like, uh,
Yes, that's yeah.
and
It-
yeah, so referent power is just it's so interesting in that way because it can be used very, very broadly, right? My referent power with my mother, for example, is I will get so frustrated if I see her like carrying a bunch of groceries in. When I used to live with her, right? You know, she'd come in the door with like 6 bags of groceries. I'm like, Mom, just call me when you're pulling into the driveway and I'll come out and get it. Like, right? And I was a little peeved. Like I was a little frustrated because I'm just like, don't be a hero, Mom, even though she is. And
yeah.
that was referent power, even though I was frustrated. I was like,
Well,
"Oh,
let me help you,
yes,
right?
let me
Right.
do this out of
I
care for you
Let me
because
bring my power to, resource power, which is ability to lift and carry and things. Don't you do it. That's what I'm here for.
yeah, and
And that
it's
spills into inclusion exclusion power,
yeah, it does. Yeah.
right? In that, so um, T's and F's will orient towards inclusion exclusion power somewhat differently. Um, and so, look, I love you, I care for you. That's a statement of inclusion. And T's do that too. Of course, they have strong feelings of love. Um, but the orientation of the F is to include those that they have a great deal of referent power for and with, if you will. And they want harmony within that inclusion. They don't want disharmony, and so they'll work to reduce that. And of course, there's negative referent power. I hate you. I despise you. I despise this celebrity or something like this. I don't. Can't think of anybody I have particularly strong feelings about that way, but that would be still an F
Mm,
dynamic, and that would also be exclusion power. I'm not going to that concert, right? I don't want to be, I don't want to be seen at that concert. I just find that celebrity or that singer so distasteful, or maybe it's their views or whatnot
yeah.
that they've expressed.
Oh, actually, negative referent power. I have a fun example. So,
Yeah.
despite being a musician myself, there are 2 bands and one singer that I cannot stand. And my referent power relationship that I have towards them that they don't really have any part in other than just the creativity that they bring to the world. Yeah, a lot of people are kind of dumbfounded by this. So
Yeah. Tell me.
number one, ACDC.
Okay.
I hate ACDC. I
I
can
do this.
actually play tons of their songs because when I was a kid, the songs were so easy that, you know, it was really beneficial to learn them. But that's just it. Once you understand how they're making their music, like they're using 3 chords. And last I checked, they had 54 songs, and that was a long time ago. So they probably have a lot more now. And
Mm.
it's the same. It's the same musical formula. It's 4 beats. It's E major chords, G major chords, D major chords, A minor pentatonic scales. Like it's all the same thing all the time. And I just don't like the sound of the singer because he's like, like I just don't like it, right? And
Yeah.
people are dumbfounded by that because ACDC is like obviously one of the most influential rock bands in history, and I did like them at one point, but as I became more understanding of music, I started to become a little bit salty towards them. The other one is the band Blink 182, which is another band, from the 90s, early 2000s that people are like, well, they were huge, like they were so good. And I know they earned their success. Their drummer's actually awesome. I can't stand the vocalists. They drive me nuts. They sound like high school kids just going like, "What doing your time?" Like I can't do it. I can't do it. I get it. I can't stand it. But I will say, like musicality wise, and the way they play their instruments, like they're good. Like they know what they're doing. It's just, vocally, it just makes me cringe, and I can't stomach it. And then the last one, which is a really controversial one. You ready for this, Ted? I don't even know if I
I'm
told.
I'm I'm strapping in
So
my office chair.
I like the band, but I don't like the singer.
Okay, I know
If
this one. Go
this
ahead.
if this band had a different singer, I would be so happy. The Red Hot Chili Peppers. I love the drummer Chad Smith. I love the guitarist John Frusciante. I love the bassist Flea. I cannot stand the singer Anthony Kiedis. I can't stand him. It's so funny to me how I can't stand him. And this is my girlfriend's favorite band, by the way. And we went to see them at Tiger Stadium in Detroit. And it was one of the, you know what? It probably was the best concert I've ever been to. Truthfully, like they put on an amazing performance. The venue sound system was immaculate for my picky, douchey musician ears. And yeah, like it was just so good. But like I just don't like that singer. I just don't like what he does. And because I feel like he talks, sings, he does these vocal things that I don't like. I sound so pretentious right now as a musical critic, but this is where I get kind of tea. I can go like very like logical about the musicality of things and very principled about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, like it's just funny with negative referent power. I have these like very strong feelings
Uh,
towards these specific influential musical figures, right?
yeah.
It was, our buddy Shane, if you were to ask him about actors, oh my God, like if you bring up Keanu Reeves to him, like it's game over. Yeah, so
And
anyways,
and Shane makes films, by the way.
Shane makes films, yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
rightfully
So
so, he has strong opinions,
Shane
but
Shorts, look it up.
yeah,
That's
Shane Shorts
there's
on
a
YouTube.
shameless plug for our dear friend Shane.
I'm in
Um,
one. I was
yes,
I was
I was at the screening. It was amazing.
it was a good
It
time.
really was. It
And you were
was
at that screening, why, Ted?
because I love you.
Oh my
Is
God.
that what you're going at?
Because of a
We
referent
appreciate.
power relationship.
Yeah, that's right. Because I
Uh,
love you, right? Like you're my brother. So
Yeah,
um, okay, we're not biologically, um, but
brother from
yeah,
another mother
yeah,
and
yeah.
father.
That's right. Um, yeah,
But we might
for
have a
reference power, of
we
course.
might have a cousin somewhere down the line. I do have a Vokes in my family tree from like, 8 generations ago.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Is
Um, yeah, it's
okay.
very
Go.
I'll have to dive into it one time. It might
Yeah,
be
yeah.
the 0.7% Welsh of me, who knows.
Who knows?
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so anyways, where were they going with that? Yeah, negative referent power. So that's kind of some very in-depth examples of negative referent power, which I didn't expect to go into. But yeah, like
Which
positive
leads
referent
you
power.
to use exclusion power
Mhm.
from listening to them. You did go to that concert. I suspect you went for, Christina.
She
Um,
man, she bought the tickets and told me we were going. Like,
there you go. Okay.
she's like, you're
There's
driving.
power.
I got these
There's
tickets.
power.
Here's
Yeah.
our seats.
Yeah.
And I mean, if anybody, knows my better half, I'm always like, "Yep, let's do it." So,
Yep.
which is also referent power, right, between the two
It
of us.
is. Exactly.
So yeah, so that's what Fs do is they really comfortable with that referent power. Now T's thinking types, I find, and Ted, correct me if this hypothesis is to be challenged, please challenge me on the air live on the Social Power Lab because that's what we do. I think that T's are more syntonic with the use of expert power.
Yep.
And reason being is because those who have expert power usually have a very in depth understanding of the topic at hand and understand the principles, understand the scenarios and the context at which this power relationship is existing. Expert power is simply, we just mentioned our friend Shane, right? So, like, if we had a question about filmmaking, Shane has expert power over us in that regard because he's literally made films before, right? So he has an expertise that we don't have in that regard. Therefore, we have an expert power relationship with him, right?
Yes.
It's the same as when you go to your doctor, right? You're having, I don't know, pains in your shoulders and your stomach, and you're like, what is this? So you go to your doctor for their expertise, right? Now, there's also the rejection of that power, which is really funny, which also I find a lot of T's engage in as well, is rejecting each other's expert power attempts, right? So this is where, you know what, psychologists, let's just go with it. I love it.
Okay.
Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, right?
Yeah.
They had like a breakup, basically.
Yeah. Carl was was the crown prince of
Yeah.
psychoanalysis. He was meant to be the one who, of all Freud's students, he was supposed to inherit the mantle of psychoanalysis, which Freud fundamentally championed, created, brought into being. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then they had a breakup.
Then they had a breakup, like they were a band or something. Because I'm thinking of that line from Avengers. The Avengers broke up like a band, like the Beatles. But yeah, like basically, as soon as Carl Jung started to have his own ideas
Started
and
to
kind
question
of
some of Freud's.
started to
Yeah.
question Freud's expertise, yeah, then they broke apart, right?
Hmm.
I think it's worth noting that there is, you know, suspicions that Sigmund Freud may have had narcissistic personality dynamics.
Hmm.
I,
No, apparently you didn't really question Freud, and
yeah.
that was. But there's even suggestion that Carl Jung did too.
Oh, really?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, some leanings that way. Perhaps not as much as Freud, but yeah. Um, so we won't go down that rabbit hole because
That
I'm
could be a
beyond
fun
my
episode, though.
expert power here.
We should do
On
we should do a psychohistory episode down the
Well,
line.
we will. We're going to do some world leaders for sure.
Yeah.
Um, right. We'll definitely do that and break those down because Adrian and I are sort of students of history, not scholars of history, but students of history, and we have overlaid. We have done a power analysis, well, a personality analysis, and of all the leaders of the National Socialist party, which was the Nazi party. And we can show you all the dark traits that were there. There were none that didn't have dark traits in volume.
Hmm.
Uh, so uh, yeah, that'll be another thing we'll do. So
Yeah.
yes, the T's will be quite. And I know somebody there. You don't know this person. It was somebody in one of the MBA courses I taught who on weekends was a performer in a band, and he was NT. So the NT, if you put the intuitive and the T together, they're kind of like super T's. They're
Yeah.
T on steroids, and he was NT because we did type theory with the MBA class and had lots of discussions. And he was a musician, or is a musician, and he indicated to me, uh, and then changed his mind about this, but it was a deliberate intention. He said, we have people that come out and watch our shows almost every week, right? And they'll come out, they'll follow us around to different gigs that we do. He was up in KW area, Kitchener Waterloo area, and and so they had a bit of a following. And he said he prided himself on being like a serious musician. It wasn't what he was in the NBA for, but that's okay. He was his his side gig. And he said before he understood type theory, and he said he would they would get a lot of positive feedback from the people that would follow them. And he said, I only actually give credence to those who I think are competent.
Which
So it
sounds so offensive, but
right.
there's a reason for it that makes sense.
Yeah.
Give,
So I only give reality shaping power to people who are experts in music like I am. So if you just come up to him and say, "Oh my God, I love that song. It speaks to me in so many ways," and he would be kind of like, "Thank you." He'd be polite but kind of dismissive. And then somebody else that he would know, maybe he had some conversation with, and knew music, and they would come up and say, "Man, I really love that yeah, I can't speak music,
hey,
that chord sequence or something like that you put into that particular song." He'd be like, "Hey, thanks for that, man. That's, I appreciate that. Yeah, I developed that doing X, Y, and Z." And so giving and wanting, and the other thing about teas is we can all want to develop competencies. Absolutely, we all take pride in what we master, but the teas really orient towards that. And what's if I'm going to give you reality shipping power, why should I be, right? Make your case, show me you're an expert, show me you've reasoned this out, right? That kind of thing. So he literally said, next weekend, I'm going to appreciate the fact that these people who know nothing about music but love our music, when they say, "Hey, that was a great set you just did. Thank you for that. I'm going to change my way. I'm going to sit. I'm going to talk with them, and I'm going to say thank you." And they don't have to be an expert in order to appreciate, you know, um, our music. And he was the lead of the band and writer and whatnot. Um, so he made a deliberate choice to not dismiss somebody's feedback because they're not an expert, and said, "Oh, they enjoy it. That's why we make this music." So um, yeah, so there you
yeah,
go. There
that's a great example.
and and when we talk about this in organizational life as well, and who do you give reality shaping power to? Um, Fs will absolutely want to know your expertise. They will, but they'll often, well, this person's a really good person, and we may be inclined to give somebody reality shaping power as an expert only because, well, they're a really nice person. Not the same thing, right? Um, Referent power and expert power come from sort of two different places, and they can come together. You can say, I really like my physician and I know that they're top of their game as an expert, but they also have great bedside manner. And, so the forms of power don't cancel each other out unless there's a power contest.
Yeah.
Um, right.
And when there's not a contest, they often complement each other very well.
Very much.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, you think about, like, okay, my physician's a great example. He's extremely competent, extremely good at explaining things, but he's also just such a kind, genuine person, right? So
Mhm.
he has expert power over me and referent power over me and
Yep.
reality shaping power over me, right? Like
Yep.
all of these things, and they're all complementing each other, right?
Yep.
Because,
And
yeah,
amplifying that, right?
yeah,
So you could meet a physician who is equally expert, um, but they have poor bedside manner, meaning they're lower on emotional and social intelligence. and they're gruff and they're direct and they, chastise you. Um, Even though they're an expert, you may not feel good about going back to see them,
Yeah.
right? Um, and this
And
is an
the other
example.
side too, like you can go see a physician who you're like, they're such a good, genuine person. They're so kind, but like, I don't know. I feel like they don't have the expertise that I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like there's that scenario too. And
yeah.
yeah, that's actually something we talk about in leadership as well. Kind
Hmm.
of these
We sure do.
yeah, we'll get into that another point. But
Yeah.
yeah, T's and F's, it's just so interesting how power is used in these contexts. The musician
Leaned
examples are
into,
so good.
yeah, leaning into it differently is
Yeah,
because
leaning
it's
into
not
it.
like Fs are, using referent power and Ts are only using expert power. That's not how it works. It's just where
Yeah.
what is going to be more persuasive to you? Because remember, power isn't a quality of the person; it's a quality of the relationship. And so I can attempt to use power and fail,
Hmm.
and it didn't hit your reward or alarm system the way I intended it, and you're kind of like meh, but you know you haven't given me a reason that I'm compelled by. Even though you're trying to appeal to, expert power or referent power or some combination thereof. So there's some thoughts on T and F and how
Yeah.
they lend to the lean into power differently. Um, when you put the combinations of letters together, this is beyond what we'll be able to talk about today. You will see even more leanings. Um, SJ combination, just as an example, I won't go through them all. They tend to be very concrete, and so what we know about them is, um, eh, you know, the bigger the rock, the bigger the love. So resource power is more important to the SJs in the world. They're going to lean into that. You say you love me, back it up with resources. Show me. That's better be a big engagement ring if you're into engagement rings and that kind of thing. Um, Whereas the NF, which is both Adrian and I, it tends to be symbolic value. And I don't care about the cost of the ring, that the resource that is ready. It's the meaning behind it that says, you really love me, for instance. And so the different types tend to orient towards power, and what the various forms of power connote to them, about, well, in this case, I'm using the example of love, but so more resource power, the more concrete you are, the more symbolic, she wrote me a poem for our anniversary or something like that, versus, where'd we go for dinner and what was the anniversary present? Okay, that's more on the SJ leaning. Not that they wouldn't like a poem written for them, but the NF combination, man, we're saps for that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
you know, so it's the symbolic value. Oh my God, somebody in a training session we were doing said, the greatest gift I got from my husband was where I went back to the place where we had our first date, and I got, you know, sand from that beach where we had our first date and put it in a a glass vial, and it's on his desk there, right? There's no value in this. It costs, $1.50 for a glass vial and and a cork, and then going and getting this free sand off the beach. But the symbolic value of that, this was a place where we, started out, romantically. So I didn't think we were going to talk about romance today, but romance is the one of the pinnacles of referent power.
Yeah,
Right? Absolutely is. And
absolutely.
T's fall in love, and absolutely they do. So
Hmm.
there will be ways that personality causes us to lean into the receptiveness to power attempts and the inclination to exercise certain power attempts using the different forms of power. That's the moral of the story there. And I think we've got through the first dimension that we're going to talk about
We
today.
did. We were supposed to get through 2, weren't we?
I know. And I
That's
think
okay.
because I'm so uh, fatigued and
I don't know about that. I talked about some pretty random shit today.
well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, this is kind of perfect timing because we're coming right up on our hour. But yeah, so this is great today. And next week we will talk about the last dimension and how it relates to power, the judging and perceiving functions, which is the
Mhm.
last letter of our 4-letter personality type. Mine's a P, Ted's is a J. So we act that'll be a fun conversation because we'll differ quite a bit.
And yeah, then we're going to go into some really brand new psychology that really relates to power too. So, organizations of self,
Hmm.
how we are many versions of us in the same cranium, in the same brain, and how we use power differently in our different roles. And what I mean by that, you're going to use power differently if you're the manager at your workplace than you are when you come home and you're the, mother or father of one or more children. You're going to use power differently according to the different versions of you that are emerging, even in the same day. And you're going to use power differently again when you go off to, play, pickleball with your friends, that sort of thing. So those are the different versions of us. We'll go there, and that one is very powerful when we get people to look at their different organizations of self and how in one organization of self they would be very comfortable using power, in that they wouldn't be comfortable using in another organization of self, because it's the relationship between them and the people they're interacting with that create that version of us, and that version of us carries with it predilections to particular ways of deploying social power. There
Hmm.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll
so
get there next.
it's a beautiful closing point. So, yeah, we're Vogue's leadership group. Feel free to follow us, send us a message, like this video, whatever the social medias you can do on there. And yeah, we will see you soon with episode 18. Ooh, we're
And
good.
you know what? We made it to episode 18, and only now have we tipped into dropping an F bomb. So
Did we drop an F
I
bomb?
think we're. Oh, you came close. I
Yeah.
think we're. Yeah, we said the. I think we've all said oh shit on this one, but so we're trying to keep it keep it a family show, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I have a mouth on me. Who would have guessed?
who would have? Yeah, yeah.
Who would have thought? Right? Um,
I'm not bilingual, but I can swear fluently in both official Canadian languages. So thank you, Canadian Armed Forces, for making sure I could swear fluently in both
mhm.
languages.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah, hell yeah.
Pretty
Pretty tame stuff for
tame.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, good
All right.
working with you, buddy.
Yeah. Likewise. And yeah, this is Vogue's leadership group. This is the Social Power Lab, and we will see you next time.
Roger that.
Thank you for listening to the Social Power Lab podcast. Make sure you join us next week as we continue to uncover the hidden dynamics of social power all around us, because every conversation changes the world one interaction at a time. You can listen to the Social Power Lab podcast on YouTube under Social Power Lab _VLG, on Spotify under Social Power Lab, on Substack under Social Power Lab, and on Apple Podcast under Social Power Lab. Thank you and have a wonderful day. This podcast was produced by Trenton Vokes. The theme was produced and written by Adrian Deschamps.